Hi, everybody, and welcome to Chat from the Old Cap. My name is Tony Hakes. I'm the Director of Regional Programs for the University of Iowa Center for Advancement. We've had some pretty cool starts to our Chat from the Old Cap, but that one kind of gave me goosebumps. And that is because we have a very special guest today, Jason Snell. Jason is a multimedia artist who can compose live music with his mind, which we were just sawing. He's going to be wearing that brain monitor on his head and using his mind waves to manipulate synthesizers and drums. He's performed solo at techno festivals across the US and as far away as Germany under the moniker Primary Assembly. A journalism and mass communication graduate from the University of Iowa, Snell has composed 9 film scores and his music appears in more than 75 albums in the electronic music scene. His music, motion, design, and filmmaking have been featured at the Sundance, South by Southwest, and Slam Dance film festivals. Jason, welcome to our program.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, the pleasure is all ours. So this has been really fascinating as we've been meeting with you leading up to these chats. And I got to say that this is just really mind-blowing, no pun intended, that you're able to do this. So I'm looking forward to a little bit longer demonstration here in a few minutes. But before we get to that, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, where you're from, how you ended up at Iowa?
Sure. Actually, I grew up in Iowa and grew up in Cedar Rapids and went to school here and then transferred to University of Iowa in Iowa City in 98. No, I'm sorry, 95, and then graduated in 98. And I got my associates from Kirkwood and then my bachelor's from Iowa. And I studied graphic design, but at the time to really dive deeper into the graphic design softwares, it was best to get a journalism degree. So technically my degree is in journalism, mass communication. And my secondary focus was through the art school, the School of Art and Art History. And, you know, since then, I moved to San Francisco, then Minneapolis, then New York for 9 years, and then California for about 4 or 5 years. And I'm fuzzy with the dates because around then I started traveling just almost all the time. And the last several years, pre-pandemic, I was traveling almost constantly, either on tour or meeting other artists and doing projects with them on location. So I tend to go to Berlin a lot. There's a lot of artists there that I'm close with and have worked with. Los Angeles, I've worked with a really outstanding dancer there in a motion sensor project I built. And then I've worked with a lot of artists here in Iowa, particularly at the university. I've also worked a bit with the city of Iowa City. They've funded a number of my projects. So I've done different types of performance and also installation art in Iowa City.
So wow, you're really deeply rooted in Iowa, but still have had the opportunity to travel the world, which is amazing. Let's talk a little bit more about Iowa. You know, how did you decide Iowa was the right school for you? We know we're one of the best in the country, of course, but maybe share with us a little bit about your experience at Iowa, whether that was a favorite experience you had or a professor that inspired you.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was both the university and the city itself. I started going down to Iowa City when I was 16. So as soon as I got my license, I started driving down. It's about a 30-minute drive from Cedar Rapids. So I started going down and to the Ped Mall. And Cedar Rapids has its perks, but, you know, growing up, essentially it was like go to the mall and to the arcade and ride bikes around. And so to go to Iowa City to their pedestrian mall, I don't know if you remember the Hall Mall, but just, you know, there was like a industrial music piercing shop. Moon Mystique was there at the time. There was just different vintage clothing stores. I mean, just things that I hadn't seen really in Cedar Rapids. And also just there was a ton of independent restaurants and cafes. There was one that Bushnell's Turtle, and even the name was fun, but it's where Martini's is now. But I just remember going there in high school and just falling in love with Iowa City as a community and just everything it had to offer. And so when I transferred there, I would say 2 professors really impacted me and became not just academic mentors, but artistic mentors. And one was in the journalism school and one was in the art school. The one in the journalism school was Kay Amert, and she was in typography, and just taught me a lot about layout, and also with journalism. I think one of the important things that comes up a lot when I'm, you know, doing programming or, you know, creating something from scratch, and I'm trying to figure out how to build something or how to reverse engineer something. One of the things I tell myself is, I don't know this, but someone out in the world does. I just have to find it. And that's a skill I learned from the journalism school is, I don't have the information right now, but I can find the person who does have that information in order to build or achieve what I want to achieve. Um, and then the art school through printmaking classes and foil stamping was Virginia Myers. And she was really a vanguard in her career. She was one of the first women to move into being an inventor in the printmaking arena, and really at a time that was dominated by men. And so she fought tooth and nail and really achieved a lot with printmaking and the technique specifically she created, which was called foil stamping. And she taught me a lot about creating an environment in which art can unfold. And so one of her things was always have your tools sharpened. And, you know, if I'm not feeling creative, what I do is I just make sure my studio is organized for when I do feel creative, everything's ready. I don't have to worry about plugging things in or finding a cable or, you know, getting something arranged. And that basic concept has ended up influencing all of my art in general, uh, and including this project that I'll be showing today. The idea is, like, what you'll hear isn't pre-composed. I don't know what the composition is going to be, you know, when I put the headband on. Uh, I just know the environment in which those sounds will come up. And so the focus is on creating environments in which art and life and creativity naturally unfold. And so I'm less focused on the final product. It's not like I want to paint this specific painting or I want to create this specific song, but I want to create an environment in which a type of song or a type of visual emerges organically, and it's really influenced on the actual moment. And this EEG system is as close to the moment as I can get because it's reading my brain live, you know, where I'm at, what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, and translating that to music in real time.
That's really incredible. I think you really capture the sort of scene and atmosphere of Iowa City. I clearly remember my first time too, being down here as a teenager, and you know, what a great place and space for artists, just like you mentioned. I clearly remember the Hall Mall as well, and those are great memories. And like you said, great for artists, great for independent cafes, restaurants, music scene. Very cool. So let's talk a little bit more about this music that you make. How did you come up with this idea for this project?
The setup was based on a technology I'd been building prior based on motion sensors. And I had been working with Bluetooth motion sensors that a dancer would wear. And their motion data would be sent via Bluetooth wirelessly to an app I made. And I would convert their motion into sounds. And so the framework for having some sort of input that was biological or organic or real time, that basic structure of taking an input and then bringing it into a music generating set of algorithms, and then to output MIDI. And MIDI is musical instrument digital interface. It's a language that allows keyboards to talk to drum machines, to talk to sequencers. It's almost like sheet music, but for electronic music. And so I was taking motion and then converting it through my system and output MIDI, and could control drum machine or a synthesizer. And what that allowed the dancer to do was, as they danced, they were making the music live. And so the dancer was able to step into the composer role at the same time as dancing, and create this really powerful biofeedback loop where, as they moved, they heard what they were creating and then could respond to what they just created with different movements or repeat the same movement, and allowed them to really experiment with composing live. Um, I had some envy watching them. So I'd set up the system and I just would see dancers put this on and have so much fun. Just the amount of power they would feel to be able to compose live. And I had that built and I had worked with a few dancers. And then I had a dream late in 2017 about it was a concept album of making music based on human DNA. It was a real lucid dream. I woke up, I wrote it down. I still have the journal entry. And I started thinking, well, how could I make music that's based more on not my motion, not my external motion, but really the fundamentals of what make me a human, just the basic building blocks of the body. And so I found a mapping of human DNA on NIH.gov, National Institute of Health, and started screenshotting those DNA sequences and converting them into musical notes and started working on some compositions based on that as a concept album. And so the idea was there when I saw, it was literally, I was scrolling through Instagram and saw an advertisement for this headband. So it's a Muse EEG headband. And it was what I was wearing earlier. And what it does is it reads the electrical output of the brain, both on the forehead, and then there's sensors behind each ear. And when I saw, and it's sold as they pair it with their own app, and the app helps you learn to meditate and improve your meditation. It scores you and tracks your meditations. But when I saw the ad for it, I looked up the Muse and I looked to see if they had a software development kit for third-party developers, because I was curious if that is Bluetooth, just like the motion sensor system I built. I wonder if I could, get this EEG, hook it up into my motion sensor system, the basic framework of it, and play music. And just the idea was so sci-fi. I was like, I don't know. I have to try this. And so I bought one, and it arrived, and within 36 hours, I had a basic prototype. I'd been watching some of the basic brain waves and how they behave. And I thought, my intention was to, if I can drop my delta waves, which delta waves are, they have the most amplitude, they go up and down the most. And I thought, if I can drop my delta wave and have it play a key on a keyboard, that was my prototype. Like, can I play a key essentially with my brain without touching the keyboard, just to thing. So I put it on, and the keyboard would have a little light that would light up if the signal went through successfully. So I put on the EEG, and I was like, trying to think. And I saw the keyboard light up, and it was just a complete eureka moment of, I just played a note on a keyboard with my brain. And instantly I knew, if I can play a single key, I can eventually make a symphony. Just build on that and build on that, and, watch how the brain behaves, see what I can do to control notes and create notes and shape music. And the system has just, evolved and built from there.
So multimedia artist indeed. You're combining music and technology and science and innovation. Just hearing you explain that, it's really, checking a lot of boxes. So is this your career? I know that you were touring prior to the pandemic and you've got some film work, but is this what you're doing, full time?
It is. So the last few years, I've been transitioning to be an artist full time. Prior, I was doing different programming and interactive work for mostly large media companies in New York. When I lived in New York, I established really good relationships with a number of companies there and continue to do that work. And I've always said, so when work dries up, or I haven't worked in an office in a really long time, but if there's a layoff, in the moment it feels terrible, but every single time it's happened to me, it's led to better things. And so that was one of the situations in 2016. I had a client I had been primarily working for, and I was already traveling and trying to transition to art as much as possible, just bit by bit, just percentage. It was like 90% client work, 10% my artwork, and then 80-20, and then 70-30. And so slowly, month by month, year by year, trying to dedicate more time to art. And the more time I spent on art, the more it would grow. And then in 2016, I was in Paris, and I got a text from my client in New York, and he's like, I think the whole department there is going to fold and dissolve. And I went into a panic, I was like, that's my money. That was my, am I ready? And it's kind of a sink or swim. So I dove into it and just started working on this full time. And occasionally I'll pick up a little side project. So now it's like 10/90. So about 10% of my time I'll do something that's for a client. But at this point, it's really, the more I do it, the more interesting I feel the projects are, not just to me, but to everyone else. I've made music for years, and I think it's very popular to a very niche, small scene. And it's been interesting to work on this system, which not just appeals to like an avant-garde music scene, but appeals to, I've been able to have really great conversations with neuroscientists, with psychologists, just across the board in terms of both science and art and humanities. So this project has been the most exciting one that I've worked on, in my life. And it also ties in a lot of threads of my life of, I've meditated for, about 20 years now. And so for me to have the experience with meditation, with computer programming, with music production, all those combined into being able to produce a project that, each step of it, I haven't had to hire someone or rely on someone else's labor to create it. So I feel really grateful for, in many ways, having a very broad education, because I was able to learn in multiple fields. And at the core of it is learning how to learn. Uh, this last few weeks, I've been reverse engineering the software that runs this headband so I can have more control over it. And I don't have a computer science degree, but I've been learning about, computer bytes and 8-bit versus 16-bit versus 32-bit. And that's what's amazing about the internet, is the access to be able to learn these things and build these things. And it's, I feel incredibly lucky.
Well, in true Iowa form, you were smart and you're positive, turning things around when you got laid off, and innovative. So again, just congratulations and really amazing. I'm going to throw your website into the chat. While I'm doing that, why don't you share your screen and get ready for the demonstration, and just kind of tell us what we're going to be looking at.
Okay. Visually, I'll be screen mirroring. The output is currently on my iPhone, so you'll be able to see my brainwaves. Let me launch that software. Make sure. Screen mirroring. All right. It's hard to do tech and talk at the same time. And launch the application. Okay, so I'll start screen sharing.
And I'll just let you explain, what we're going to be seeing, and then if you want to jump into your performance, we'll let you have at it.
Great.
Thank you.
So share computer sound and desktop. Are you able to see my visual output now? I just want to confirm.
Yep.
Great. So what you'll be seeing is I'll be wearing the EEG headband, and like I mentioned, it's similar to the motion sensor system. It'll be transmitting the electrical output of my brain via Bluetooth to this app, which I'll hold up. So this app is what I'm screen sharing onto the Zoom as well, so you'll be able to see it. But the app I developed takes in the information from my brain, and splits it into 5 different waves, and you may have heard of delta waves, theta waves, alpha waves, beta and gamma. And those waves are at different frequencies. Delta is the lowest and gamma is the highest, fastest. And those waves themselves are, they're a very low frequency compared to sound. So most of the waves are below the auditory level. When I first got into this, I assumed thought it would be a real fast frequency, but it's below the auditory level. So we can hear down to about 30 hertz, which would be a very bass, sub-bass. When you get down to like that 30 range, you more feel the sound rather than hear it as it gets lower and lower. And then once you drop, to about 20 and lower, you just can't hear it anymore. Those waves, our ears don't pick up on that. But that's the range where a lot of brain waves are. And so 0 to about 4 is delta, 4 to 8 is theta, 8 to 12 alpha, and then so on, going up to, I think, gamma. Some EEGs read up to about 35 or 40 hertz. Some open up gamma to about 100 hertz. So that would be in the auditory range. It's a bunch of tech talk about brainwaves, but with those waves, what I've discovered, and other people, particularly in the science field with EEG research, is that those brainwaves tend to correlate with different thoughts and feelings and energy levels in the brain. And one of the things I tried when I first got this was, if I think a specific word, will that be different? If I think the word one versus the word two, will I be able to pick up on the difference of that? And the best way I can explain it was a metaphor I read about in a EEG paper. And it talked about one of the limitations with the EEG compared to, I forget the name of the scanner, that's maybe MRI, but an EEG is, because it's outside of the skull, it's almost like being outside of a stadium. So if I'm outside of a stadium, I can tell if, let's say it's baseball. I'm not super a sports guy, but I do know baseball. So if someone hits a home run, you can tell that's happened. You can get a sense of the fans and cheering. If something bad happens, you can feel that just by hearing. But you can't hear individual conversations if you're outside the stadium. And so that's how an EEG is. It's making readings of the general states of the mind. It's not thought specific. And what's end up happening with this is, the more I use it, the more I'm able to control that crowd inside of the stadium and get them to, it's almost like getting the audience to do the wave, like getting them to, the electricity inside my brain to behave in certain ways, knowing what the musical output will be, and that will allow me to compose. And it's very much like a fluid environment. It's almost like moving through water, the way of electricity moving through the mind. And so that's what you'll hear is upon the EEG and perform for a few minutes. And actually, I need to switch sound kits before I forget. And the MIDI, I'm pointing towards Ableton, which you'll be able to see on the screen. And the current system, so I'm composing live, but I'm not choosing the sounds live. The sounds are from these sound kits, which it's almost like switching from like a piano to an organ to a different type of keyboard. And this will take maybe 20 seconds to load. A future version of this is I'll be taking the brainwaves to shape the actual sounds as well. And so to take a pad sound and shape it into a kick sound. But the current version that I'll be performing is all the composition is coming from my brain. And also some of the manipulation of the sound. So filters and effects, the reverb and high pass and low pass filters, I'll be moving. Got the color wheel, which is normal. It usually takes a bit to load. And so the MIDI will be pointing into different synthesizers that are loaded on the computer. And then I don't know if I'll be able to lift it up, but I also have a little synthesizer, outboard one hardware synthesizer. It's Electron Digitone. So some of the sounds will be coming from the Digitone. So I'm sending the MIDI both to my computer software and the external synthesizer, and those sounds are being mixed together. All right, and I'm open to any questions afterwards. I'll get started. It's interesting. It takes a minute for the, so you can see the brain waves are dark here, but it takes a minute for the screen share to catch up. So I wonder what the delay is on that. So when I take the, there it is. So when I take the headband off, it, you know, all the colors drop off and the readout drops off. And I forgot to mention that the colors themselves, so if you saw reds and blues and purples, those are based on my brainwaves. I created a brainwave to RGB converter, and delta waves, which are more alert or stressful, would be the red color mixed in. And blue is alpha wave, which is a meditative, or alpha waves actually go up when I listen to music. So if I ever get lost, particularly during a performance, I can just listen to the music and I'll hear the alpha sounds come back, and that becomes my foundation. And I can compose from there. And the sounds I chose correlate to the feeling of the wave. And so alpha waves are lower, dreamier, bassier, and the other waves, as they go up in frequency, make up more of the synth sounds or the higher sounds as they moves up into more activated thought.
Well, that was really fascinating. I think it's strange because it sort of takes a second to get going. You can sort of feel that, pulsing through. It's like the Pixies sort of loud, quiet, loud concept, but with your brain waves. So that was really amazing. I wish I would have put my headphones on during that. But people can go to your website and see YouTube videos and listen further. So the chat is open if anyone wants to send some questions in. I've already gotten a few questions, but you can just ask your question directly to me through the chat, and I'll relay that to Jason. But the first one we have is, what are you thinking about when you're composing? When you had that on, what were you thinking about?
It's a great question. So the thought process is similar to, it's almost like, what do you think about when you play guitar, or what do you think about when you're surfing? So it's not like C note or B note or filter open, filter close. It's more of the feeling of, what do I need to do internally to stay, let's use the surfing metaphor. What do I need to do to stay on the board in terms of like moving forward or moving back and getting instant feedback? So with surfing, the feedback is through physics. You'll feel gravity, or like, oh, I'm about to fall. And with this, the feedback I'm getting is through the sound, and occasionally I'll look at the visuals as well. But it's actually easier for me to compose with my eyes closed. And so as I get the feedback, I can learn to metaphorically move forward or move back and stay balanced, and hear the sounds, and learn to, the more I use it, the better I get at manipulating this. And so at times I've seen visuals in my brain of almost just currents of electricity, and then seeing in my imagination manipulating those, and then hearing the output through the sound. And so I'm learning to control my brain more the more I use this system, because I'm getting this biofeedback. Sometimes with more rhythmic music. This one isn't hooked up to a tempo, but I have a build that will start using a PPG, which can get your heart rate, and that will emit a steady beat, or an alternating beat as my heart goes up and down. And sometimes with more rhythmic music, I start to see a circle moving. And so it's very much it's like a physical process. It's almost like physically modeling shapes in my brain and then hearing the output. So that's what I'm thinking about.
Prior to this call, I know you had talked about, it looks so relaxing, and it was relaxing for all of us, but for you, you said it was kind of draining. And so we have some people, kind of wanting to dive into that science side of things. We are getting quite a few questions in. I want to be cognizant of time. So can somebody that can't speak use this and create music?
Who can't speak? Yeah. No, if you're mute, yeah. I haven't tested it on someone that's mute. I've tested it on someone who has synesthesia, and the levels are really high, because as she closed her eyes, her own visuals just that her brain produced were through the roof. And so all of her brain waves, you saw mine dancing along, hers would have just been at the top of the screen. I've put the system on someone who was blind, and saw his brain waves. And I've put this system on, probably, it was with Iowa City. I did a presentation to, it's like a whole summer camp. It was like 60 kids. I was like, the most difficult presentation I've ever done. I was like, how do you explain brain waves to a bunch of 7-year-olds, and they got it. They loved the system. I was afraid they'd be nervous about trying it, but they lined up, and it was almost chaos at the end once they realized that time was going to be cut short. And with kids, I noticed the waves are, the brain is smaller, so it's not outputting as much electricity. So their waves are actually fewer decibels. So yeah, someone who couldn't talk or any other disability absolutely could put this on, because it's not based on the senses, it's based on the electricity coming off the brain. And anyone who puts it on, there's going to be sounds that come out. The thing that changes is with time, or with something like a meditation practice, learn to control the motion and the movement of thought in the brain, and that's what allows the control.
So here we got a few questions that are sort of along those lines. Are you using this, or is it possible to use this, do you think, to treat mental illness or somebody with the traumatic brain injury? Are you using that at all, or have you tried it at all?
I haven't, but I'm sure it could. That is something I want to explore as the system becomes more involved. Something I mentioned before we started was I'm reverse engineering the software that runs the headband, so I have more direct access to the raw data coming off the EEG sensors. And I'm almost done. I'm about 80% done with the reverse engineering process. And I think having more, having that access to the raw data will allow me to do more scientific oriented experiments, rather than just having the data that was being output by the software development kit, by the headbands creator. And that's something I think would be really exciting to do with the university. I met with um, his name was In Young. He was over, I think it was in a auditory department, but he was researching what the brain waves do when what does the brain do when a person listens to music, and how does it start to predict what's going to happen next? And so I actually learned a lot about alpha waves from him. So that is something I definitely want to do, is see how this could connect and help more people and connect with different fields.
And again, we were just talking about this. Have you ever fallen asleep with it on, and what happened?
Sure. So I've napped with it. And what was really interesting is, as I was napping, the mind goes through different phases. It's not like I close my eyes and I'm suddenly dreaming. There's this stair-step process of moving down. And what was interesting with having the system on was, each time I started to move into a new phase, or pre-dream imagery almost blooms like a flower. So when a new image or a new sensation would bloom, I would hear it. And when I would hear the sound, it would remind me, oh, I'm falling asleep with an EEG on. I had set something up when I was conscious. And so it became this really interesting lifeline back to consciousness, almost like deep sea diving. So I had this, as I was going deeper and deeper into my consciousness, subconscious, I had this line back up to the surface to remind me, hey, you're actually, you have an EEG on. And so the sounds would change, and different ones would get triggered as I'd go deeper and deeper. It was fascinating. And then eventually I did fall asleep, and then woke up to more sounds.
Um, that's so interesting. We'll maybe do one more question here, and then I think you were going to do kind of a one more demonstration as we're closing the meeting out. But
Okay.
could someone that's not able to speak, is it possible to use this technology instead of music to turn it into a computer that would allow them to speak?
It's a good question. I would have to dive deeper in and work with someone who's knows more of the science of language. I've actually always been a very nonverbal person. I was super shy, so it took forever to be able to talk as much as I am right now. Um, so what I don't know is, the limitation of the EEG is, like I said, it's being outside the stadium. And so, can you form words based on that information? Music is more of an abstract in shape, whereas language is very specific. It's a very concrete uh, phenomenon. Uh, so that's what I don't know is with the information outside the stadium, could that start to form sounds? And I know that there has been work with EEG to be able to control a cursor or play a video game. And I think that's if you target in on a specific brainwave and be able to learn to manipulate that single brainwave, then you can, control something on a screen. But even that's a pretty limited, that's, up, down, left, right, whereas language has so many combinations. It is something I'm interested in. I would like to start mapping instead of sounds. I want to take different syllables and consonants from English and start connecting certain brain waves to those consonants, and then learn, can I form sentences? And then when I form the sentences or words, can I then start to correctly identify which wave can emit certain syllables and then start to control language? So that would be a way of kind of going through the process reverse, is just plug it in, see what comes out, and then tweak the system so words start to form.
Well, it really sounds like you're on the forefront of what at one time might have been science fiction, and here you're combining all these artistic elements with science and technology. So I have a feeling that this is really going to take off and go far and probably change the world. You mentioned a lot about doctors, so I'll let you kind of get ready to set up to do your performance, because in August, all of our chat from the old caps are actually doctors, PhDs and MDs. So if anyone in the audience wants to join us for those, you can. But in July, it's all artists. So we have you this week, and next week we have Monica Carrera, who is the head of 3D design at the university. And so she's going to be showcasing some of her designs and how she works with students, and be talking a lot about that. So I will put that in the chat if anyone wants to register for that. So we'll let you kind of take us out. We have recorded this, we'll put it on YouTube and send it to everybody shortly. And then we'll just let you go for a few minutes, and then I'll end the meeting for all. So Jason, this has been just really enlightening and fascinating, and very cool to see, and you are truly a pioneer. So we wish you nothing but the best in moving forward. And when you're back on campus, please let us know, and we'd love to come see you perform. So best of luck to you.
Great, thank you, Tony. And this last sound kit is fairly noisy, so enjoy.